So boy, fellas, and my hard R fellas that have joined the channel, the guys at Triggernometry have been peak kvetching about Tucker Carlson platforming Nick Fuentes and not giving adequate pushback for his dangerous ideas. Well, it's their turn up at the plate talking to Hasan Piker. Oh boy, did they fail. They let Hasan speak probably 75% of the hour-and-a-half interview. They just let him completely steamroll them and did not hold his feet to the fire at all whatsoever. I believe Francis has had family from Venezuela that went through communism, and Konstantin Kisin is from the Soviet Union, so they both have deep, personal, familial ties to experiences of communism, so you'd think this would be way more near and dear to their heart than Nick Fuentes saying mustache man cool. Now, I have made several videos on the things Hasan Piker has said, and I will cover some of them in this video, but here's a playlist to those videos just to save some time for this video. The video could be 2 hours long of all the things Hasan Piker has said, but let me give you the timeline right now, okay? So on November 12th, libertarian, anti-Israel Dave Smith goes on Triggernometry, and Konstantin is obsessively talking about how dangerous Nick Fuentes is and how Tucker Carlson didn't address Nick saying he likes Stalin and thinking mustache man is cool. Here you go.
If you have a Holocaust denier who says Hitler was very cool on your show, and you praised Hitler and then came on my show and also praised Stalin, and he's someone who's saying things like, I love Hitler, I love Stalin.
Okay, but that is different than a sitting senator who's advocating for a war.
Yeah, so, look, I don't agree with you that broccoli is brilliant, if that's what you believe. But if you said, I love Stalin, on the other hand, he has Nick Fuentes on, who says, I love Stalin.
You know,
so you don't think Nick likes Hitler? Or you don't think he likes Stalin?
You know, honestly, I don't know. I just don't know.
Did you ask him?
We've got to be honest, Dave. We really...
I love Stalin.
Now, what you should know during this conversation is that Triggernometry had already interviewed Hasan Piker. It just came out a few weeks later. And so let's hear Konstantin pat himself on the back for the excellent pushback they gave Hasan.
For example, we had, this will go out before the episode I'm about to mention, but we interviewed Hasan Piker, right? He basically says in the episode, he doesn't say it in terms, but he's like, I sort of say, well, people call you a communist, isn't that? And he's like, yeah, I've got no problem. Like, when we interviewed him, we pushed back on stuff he said, because communism is a horrific ideology.
You're off to a bad start, Konstantin, because Nick Fuentes doesn't call himself a Nazi. However, all of you people can call him a Nazi. Now, Hasan Piker says he's not a communist, but he's fine with being called a communist. That really sound like you gave him pushback? What if Nick Fuentes said he's fine with being called a Nazi, even though he's not a Nazi? Haven't seen you guys bring that up at all, but after their conversation with Dave Smith about 5 days later, Francis and Konstantin were talking to each other, and Konstantin starts to realize maybe he didn't push back that much.
Because we hadn't spent as much time communicating with him, we did not go as hard at him as we did with Dave, and you know, I wish in many ways Hasan came after Dave, because I think we probably would have handled that in a more robust way, but still we had an interesting conversation in which he basically he didn't say the words, I'm a communist, but he's currently in China celebrating being given Mao's Little Red Book. And he did say in our interview, I don't have a problem being called a communist or something like that.
So he starts walking it back, and by his own shrewish admission, admits that he was a lot harder on Dave Smith for not being as frustrated about Nick Fuentes than he was about the communist he talked to, who is equally, if not more popular than Nick Fuentes. At the very least, he's completely mainstream and says he doesn't mind being called a communist. Now, let me show you the duplicitous nature of Hasan Piker, obviously saying he's definitely, clearly a communist, and then also saying to someone else he's definitely not a communist. Let's go.
Like, oh, I don't know. I'm not a communist. Tee-hee, I can't really, it's not happening anytime soon. And then when you go to his stream, it's like, fucking liberals need to die.
Dude, I hate liberals, dude. I hate them. I hate them so viciously.
Did he secretly despise me this whole time?
I'm sorry, dude. I hate liberals so much.
Did this man sit next to me for 2 years and pretend to be my friend?
Dude, liberals are a burden on this planet, dude. Liberals are the most, like, scummy, vile, fucking idiots. Liberals are incredibly stupid. I hate these petulant liberals, dumb fucking liberals.
Communism. I have a fucking red scare. I have a sickle and hammer in the background. Here's Hasan in Japan, pathetically.
Just for context, when he was in Japan, he was visiting the Japanese Communist Party there, and he brought back gifts for AOC and Bernie Sanders, and he gave Bernie Sanders a little toy train, like a child, but also had a Japanese communist pin for these socialist politicians in our country.
I went to Japan recently, and I got both of you guys gifts. I actually have another gift for you, but unfortunately I don't have your gift, the actual gift here. Hold on. This one's for you. This is a Palestinian movement in Japan.
Thank you.
Solidarity with Palestine. And this is a little train for public transit. I have a Japanese Communist Party pin for you as well, but unfortunately, because I went over there and I checked out their headquarters.
Here's Hasan in Japan, pathetically, responding to the nuke on just this month, the beginning of this month.
Fucking bird-brained moron. Or maybe a disingenuous grifter.
He is talking about me feigning surprise that he's a communist.
Maybe a disingenuous grifter who recognizes that the person that they were talking to never really sheltered their views whatsoever.
He never hid that he was a communist.
Guys, I have a fucking statue of Lenin behind me.
Can you break that down? What was Lenin known for? Now, again, you can be a communist.
They all lie.
But Hasan is
A lying communist.
lying,
Right.
being manipulative
A communist.
to funnel people through radicalization.
Guys, I have a fucking statue of Lenin behind me. I guess this is a piece from his video. Okay, my hiding being a communist. Okay, I had a show on the Young Turks called Agitative Propaganda. Even in these clips, there is a fucking USSR Ushanka behind my head. There is a bust. There is a what is it called? A Matryoshka doll of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. That's Che Guevara. That is another USSR Ushanka behind my head. What the fuck are you saying?
So the guy who went to talk to you, Dean, and say, I'm not a communist.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm not a communist. So I think
That's fucking
that
interesting.
Konstantin Kisin the wall just needed to hear that Nick Fuentes loves Stalin and said that mustache man is cool, and nagged Dave Smith about how Tucker Carlson didn't push back on that enough. Meanwhile, mainstream Hasan Piker openly espouses the ideology of Vladimir Lenin. Nick Fuentes doesn't have mainstream backing. So which one is really a bigger threat? There's socialists in government, Marxists in academia, and the largest political streamer on the left, who is a communist, about to sit in front of them. Read the comments. No one enjoyed this interview. Let me start off the interview by just giving you a taste as to why I can't show you Hasan Piker talking for too long. Imagine letting this prominent communist control the conversation the entire time.
But I wasn't very good off the cuff. So I thought to myself, if I can play a video game and talk about politics at the same time and be able to entertain people, maybe 30 at a time, maybe 300 at a time if I'm lucky, then I can get a lot better at public speaking and speaking off the cuff. And as you guys might have figured out by now, I never shut the fuck up. So I guess it worked. Worked.
And you mentioned progressive values and that being something that's important to you. What are progressive values, would you say?
Let's see how much his public speaking has improved.
I think progressive values, for me at least, are founded around empathy first and foremost, to try and uplift everyone's material conditions to the best of our ability, and focusing on protecting those who need protection, and simultaneously advancing a cause of the way I think about it, advancing the cause of unlocking the potential of every single person, no matter where they are. Because right now, there are probably billions of brilliant people that never actually get the opportunity to unlock their true potential because of where they're born.
Oh, it's been a chore to listen to this. Don't you love that universalism, that blank slate theory? You know, billions of people just need their economic conditions to be satisfied so they can unlock their true potential, you know? The fact that a vast majority of their skulls looks like a 5-year-old fucking drew them has nothing to do with anything. Everyone has equal potential in the world, and they all have to come to the West. Speaking of coming to the West, let's hear Konstantin interact with Hasan Piker talking about having no nationalism and how nobody in the UK wants to fight in the army for their government. And Konstantin ends this interaction with economic inequality and opportunity.
I am not even remotely nationalistic by any measure. I don't care about those sorts of things. But I think it's important to understand, like, it's a good way to see the temperature of society. And a lot of the young British people were like, no, why would I fight for England? Why would I fight for the UK when it seems like my government's not even fighting for me at all? And
see, the reason a lot of them will say that, though, is the main reason is they feel like they've been let down by mass immigration that's eroding the values of their country. And of course, this is where I think people on the right are very blind to this issue that we already raised, which is wealth inequality and opportunity. Right?
I'm sure there are some people who feel that way, of course, but...
Oh, yeah, dude. He's pushing back so hard against the communists where he's like, you know what? The right is very blind to the wealth inequality that's driving these conditions. Wouldn't that be like talking to Nick Fuentes and being like, you know, the left doesn't acknowledge nearly enough the differences in racial IQ. You're ceding the quote-unquote extremists' argument. What pushback that is. So Konstantin rolls out his tongue and lets Hasan put his toes in his mouth and cedes ground to that argument. Let's see if Hasan can even give any concessions at all whatsoever to agree that if someone's gonna fight for their country, it's likely to be a person on the right. Right leans toward nationalism, left leans toward globalism, right? This is an obvious point that you would think gets an automatic yes.
Think about this, Hasan.
But
Hold on, let me just finish the point. Like, stereotypically speaking, is it left of center people or right of center people that are going to go and fight for their country? Typically, it's going to be right of center people because of the mindset that they have, right?
I think when push comes to shove, everybody fights for their country because that's why you have to have a draft.
In a war, but what we're talking about in this situation is, will you go and serve in the armed forces? That is going to be a more right-leaning perspective. And those people, we probably, fair to say, know the UK pretty well. Those people are concerned about the national identity of their country. It's like, why would I fight for a country that doesn't feel like my country? Is the issue for them.
This is where the big point of division comes for someone like myself. You're Venezuelan originally, your family came from Venezuela, your family came from the USSR. You guys are the most British people I've ever encountered.
I have a very British face, yes. You are correct.
Yeah, exactly. You're British to the bone.
Yeah.
And yet, your families also came from countries that were somewhat far away from England, right?
Yeah.
And again, they have to concede to the communists. Both the communist and the liberal are both universalists. What do you mean by national identity, Konstantin? What do you have to back that up? You can't say ethnic identity, so you say national identity. And a national identity means paperwork American. So he's about to dog walk you, and how can you possibly disagree with him? That, look at you, Konstantin. You look like somebody added a dash of milk to my coffee. What do you mean national identity? Let's see how it goes.
I'm Turkish. I grew up in Turkey. My whole family lives in Turkey still, with some exceptions. And I would say I'm pretty assimilated to American culture. What I always find interesting is when people focus on...
Wait for it.
The newcomers, to say that this is actually destroying the social fabric or social cohesion, not realizing that there are a ton of polls conducted on this stuff. I can just speak for America, especially, where everyone becomes American.
That's not true in the UK, though, unfortunately. So if you look at, for example, Islamist radicalization, second and third generation Muslims are much more radical than first generation.
Yeah.
So we're not, that's the issue that a lot of people in Britain are concerned about, is not everyone's assimilating the way that the three of us have done.
So here's the interesting point about that. Well, two things I want to address. First, like I said, people assimilate, and they become a part of the
some people
normal forces of society.
Great job, Konstantin. Just mutter under your breath and take a sip of water like a good guy. Yeah, really holding his feet to the fire. Well, some people, yes. Let's see how the conversation about communism goes. Do you think it's gonna go well?
you don't start off by saying we want to altogether ban trans people. You start off by trying to find the most successful approach that the broadest majority of the masses would be in tune with, would be in agreement with, and then you slowly but surely expand on it.
Wouldn't that be like me saying, well, you say you want socialism, but actually you're a communist because you just want to edge your way towards communism step by step?
I mean,
that seems like an unfair way of looking at it.
No, my retort to that would be that while I don't call myself a communist, I don't have an issue with an end goal of communism. I don't think it's like I just think that it's probably not likely to happen, a stateless, moneyless, borderless society. But moving towards that end goal, I don't have any real...
You'd like communism in America?
Imagine Nick Fuentes saying, I don't mind Nazism. I don't think we're ever going to achieve it, in an all-white country. But, I'm fine if it happens. You shit-colored scallywag.
I think that communism would be most likely an international thing. It'd be like the Star Trek universe. And it feels, especially at this point, it feels far too utopian to achieve. So while I think that the concept in and of itself is not one that I disagree with, and I don't think you would either. Don't you think it would be nicer?
I grew up in a communist country. I very strongly disagree with the concept of communism.
The USSR was, as you know as well, trying to implement communism. They never actually were able to successfully implement communism.
How do you mean?
Well, it wasn't a borderless, moneyless, classless society, right?
That was
it
never
would be
the goal of communism. It was never to be a borderless, moneyless society.
No, that is what communism is.
Well, that's not how the communists in Russia defined it.
Well,
there was a big debate within communism quite early on, which was about, are we pursuing a global state of communism?
Trotsky versus Stalin. I'm very familiar.
Right, but for our audience, this might be worth explaining.
Yeah.
Some of them they basically recognized the only way you might ever get to a communist society is if everyone in the world gets it. Otherwise, there will always be a capitalist system to which people would be keen to defect.
Here's the tone and emotion in Konstantin's face when he's crying to anti-Israel libertarian Dave Smith about Tucker Carlson talking to Nick Fuentes, saying he loves Stalin.
If you have a Holocaust denier who says Hitler was very cool on your show, and you praised Hitler, and then came on my show and also praised Stalin, on the other hand, he has Nick Fuentes on, who says, I love Stalin.
We've got to be honest, Dave. I
love Stalin.
Versus his tone and energy talking directly to a celebrity communist about Stalin.
Or, this is the Stalin option that they ended up going for, is you pursue communism within the realm of one country. And in order to do that, they took the wealth away from people who had it. They tried to distribute it to everybody else. They tried to create a state of equality, uplift the poor, as you were talking about. And actually, if you take those measures alone, they were very successful at it. Mm-hmm. The only problem is they ended up putting, millions of people in camps in order to do that, creating a tyrannical regime with a secret police that murdered people. And that is the reason communism, in my opinion, doesn't work, is because in order to achieve that goal of equality, and basically you're making everybody equally poor as the end result, you actually have to use a lot of force, right? So that was communism, what we had in the USSR.
Well, the end goal was never successfully achieved in the USSR in terms of establishing what I'm talking about.
Imagine if Nick Fuentes said into a microphone on a large platform that he agrees with the ideas of Mustache Man and it just never came to fruition. So, did it really ever happen? His ideology didn't really come true, now did it? Who else is waiting for this pushback? Huh? Let's talk about communism in China. Maybe that'll get old Konstantin kissing his balls going.
China is run by the Communist Party of China. It bills itself as communist. China is not a communist country. Would you say China is a communist country?
It's a mixed country. It has some elements of communism, but it's also got a lot of capitalism going on.
Yeah,
right?
So it's a mixed market economy is what you're saying, right? But so is the United States of America, if you look at it from that perspective.
Please don't let him get away with that. It's a false equivalency. You can't just let him compare China's mixed economy to the United States' mixed economy. Konstantin, Francis, I'm sorry for what I've said about you guys. I take back everything. You're actually really funny, successful comedians. Everyone thinks that. Francis definitely doesn't have room for 2 full Tom Selleck mustaches on his face. And Konstantin, you don't look like an evil hell dwarf henchman. For the love of God, speak up. Do that thing you were saying about pushing back on his stupid communist ideas because you're so offended by them. Oh, I know. Pretend he's Dave Smith and you're complaining about how Tucker Carlson talked to Nick Fuentes. Yeah, try that. Grow a set of dicks. Or I guess just let Francis read off of a piece of paper.
And they have responded to it in their own way.
The challenge is, Hasan, when you centralize power and you give practically all the power to the government, what happens with that is you're far more likely to have corruption, you're far more likely to have abuse of power, and inevitably what happens is that the government can't do everything. There are things that are far better done by private practice than done by state control.
Haha, psych. He wasn't reading off of a piece of paper. He was just looking down at his hands repeatedly because he's such a meek minge. The only thing they're pushing back is their cheeks into another man's pelvis. Full-throated softball interview. Now, you may have noticed I sped up Hasan Piker's footage, and by sped up, I mean sped. Let me show you why I did that. I'm gonna condense a 10-minute block of conversation into 2 minutes, okay? And I'm going to show you how in that 10 minutes, Hasan Piker talked for 8 of those minutes, like monologuing.
And that's why I'm saying it's important to understand and recognize the failures of this implementation in the aftermath of a socialist revolution, and choose not to repeat those mistakes.
So how would you do it differently?
So he talks from 43 minutes to 44:50. That's a minute 50. We're going to be judging this from 43 to 53.
So if
I agree with that. Would you also agree that there are things that are far better?
45:20 to about 48:30. That's 3 minutes and 10 seconds plus 1 minute and 50 seconds equals 5 minutes so far. Mind you, this started at 43 minutes. We will be excluding back and forth banter. 49:20 to right around 51. So Hasan Piker has monologued for 6 minutes and 40 seconds so far, out of about 8 minutes. 51:15 to 52:40. 8 minutes and 5 seconds of pure obfuscation.
The reason I'm interrupting you is we've moved sideways from the topic. So remember where we started this conversation, right? So just to address your point.
The repression didn't start in China by everybody being like, all right, it's over, we're throwing you in jail. It builds up to it is what I'm. And it's entirely dependent on the starting point.
And Konstantin still can't get a word in edgewise. So let's end it here. They don't care about dangerous ideas. For some reason, even though they have family that has lived through communism, how could they go so easy on Hasan? Oh well, I guess we'll leave that for another day. The powers that be only seem to care about the far right and not the far left. I wonder why that is. Sometimes it feels like there's a small group of people that have a massive historical overlap with the left. You know what they say, if you want to know who rules over you, just look for who you're not allowed to criticize. Well, the mocking will continue.
There have been instances throughout American history where the First Amendment has been actively violated or threatened. There are still contemporary examples of violations of the First Amendment. One example I will use is the anti-boycott, divestment, and sanctions laws that exist in the United States of America. Famously was Bernie Sanders and Dianne Feinstein, rest in peace, who actively called it out. Two prominent Jewish politicians in the country. These are laws directly written by AIPAC, that dictate that if you want to become a school teacher in the state of Texas, for example, you have to sign a loyalty pledge to ensure that you never protest against the state of Israel. It's ridiculous, right? And it's a direct violation of the First Amendment. So there are there is encroachment towards the First Amendment.
That will always happen because people will always contest it. But the point I'm making to you is when you...
Until morale improves.
I mean, we did talk quite a bit about the collapse of liberalism around the globe. I guess in this instance, and I can't speak to all the other conversations that you guys have had, we didn't get to talk about Israel too much. And that's something that I wanted to talk about, which has also exhibited historical patterns of fascism in and of itself in a vein that is not dissimilar to what we're seeing in Western liberal democracies as well.
All right,
but
well,
that's
I wish
what
we
I would
had
say.
more time.
Yeah.
Maybe next time we can pick up some other topic.
All right.
Have a good one.